At dinner, Dad asked if my allowance was enough. When I said, "What allowance?" his face went white. The fork froze halfway to his mouth. Mom stopped chewing her pot roast and stared at me like I'd just announced I was dropping out of college to join the circus. "What do you mean? What allowance?" Dad's voice came out strangled. I looked between them, confused. "I've never gotten an allowance. Ever. I've been working at the grocery store since I was 14 to buy my own clothes and pay for gas." Mom set down her fork. "Honey, your father has been giving you $200 every month since you were 12. My stomach dropped. "No, he hasn't." Dad's face had gone from white to green. He pushed back from the table and walked to his office without a word. We could hear him frantically opening and closing drawers, papers rustling. "Lila," Mom said carefully, "your dad set up automatic transfers from his account." He showed me the bank statements. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward her. "Mom, look, I've got $1,100 total. That's from working 20 hours a week for the past 4 months. She studied my account balance, her frown deepening. "That's impossible. He's been transferring money for 6 years. Dad returned, clutching a folder. His hands were shaking as he spread bank statements across the dinner table, knocking over the salt shaker. "Look," he said, pointing at line after line of transactions. $200 transfer to Lila Morrison, every month, for 6 years. I leaned forward. "Dad, that's not my account number." The silence stretched until I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. Mom grabbed the statement, comparing it to my phone screen. "Richard," she whispered, "this account number, it's different." Dad sank into his chair like someone had pulled his plug. "That's impossible. I set this up myself. I specifically requested transfers to Lila's college fund account." "Whose account is this money going to?" I asked. Dad's face crumpled. "I don't know." The next morning, Dad was on the phone with the bank before they even opened. I sat beside him as he explained the situation to 3 different representatives, each one transferring him higher up the chain. Finally, a supervisor named Patricia came on the line. "Mr. Morrison, I've located the account in question. The funds have been going to an account under the name Lila Morrison Chen." Dad's face went white again. "That's not my daughter's name. Sir, according to our records, this account was opened by your wife, Donna Morrison, in 2018. I watched my father's world collapse in real time. Mom had been sitting at the kitchen counter, but she'd gone completely still. "That's impossible," Dad said. "My wife is sitting right here." "Sir, I'm showing Donna Morrison as the account holder and Lila Morrison Chen as the beneficiary. The account was opened with your wife's signature and identification." Dad turned to look at Mom. "Donna," she stood up slowly, her coffee mug trembling in her hands. "I can explain," she whispered. "Explain what?" Dad's voice was barely audible. Mom set down her mug and walked toward the front door. "Where are you going?" I called after her. She grabbed her purse and keys. "I need to make a phone call." The door slammed behind her. Dad and I sat in stunned silence, listening to her car start and pull out of the driveway. That's when I noticed the manila envelope that had fallen from her purse. I picked it up. It was addressed to Lila Morrison Chen, at an address I'd never seen before. Inside were documents I couldn't understand, legal papers, birth certificates, and a photo that made my blood freeze. It was me as a baby, but I was being held by a woman I'd never seen before. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "Lila's first mother. Goodbye for now." Dad leaned over my shoulder, staring at the photo. "Who is that woman?" I flipped through more papers. There were hospital records from my birth, but they listed my mother as Amy Chen instead of Donna Morrison. My father was listed as unknown. "Dad," I whispered, holding up a document. "This says I was adopted." He grabbed the paper, scanning it frantically. "That's impossible. I was there when you were born. I held you in the delivery room." But as we dug deeper into the envelope, the truth became undeniable. There were adoption papers dated when I was 3 months old, medical records showing I'd lived in foster care for my first 90 days of life, and most damning of all, a letter from someone named Amy Chen, dated just last week. "My dearest Lila," it read. "I know this must be confusing, but the woman you call Mom has been sending me updates about you for years. She promised me that when you turned 18, we could finally meet. The account she set up was my way of contributing to your upbringing from a distance. I've been working 2 jobs to make sure I could send that money every month, even though I make a fraction of what your adoptive father does. I love you so much, and I can't wait to finally tell you the truth about why I had to give you up." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read the letter. "Dad," I said, my voice breaking, "did you know I was adopted?" He stared at the papers for a long time. "Yes," he finally whispered, "but your mom made me promise never to tell you. She said it would confuse you and make you love us less. And you were okay with lying to me my entire life? I thought we were protecting you," he said. "Your birth mother was 17, unmarried, with no way to care for a baby. We thought we were giving you a better life by stealing money from her." Dad's face crumpled. "I had no idea. I thought the money was going to your college account." Donna handled all the paperwork. That's when I realized the full scope of what had happened. Mom, the woman I'd called Mom for 18 years, had been intercepting money that my biological mother had been scraping together to send to me. Money she probably desperately needed for herself. When Mom came home 3 hours later, Dad and I were sitting at the kitchen table with all the documents spread out between us. She took one look at the papers and sank into her chair. "How long have you been stealing from her?" I asked. "It's not stealing," Mom said defensively. "That money was meant for you. I've been putting it in a savings account." "Then where is it?" Dad demanded. Mom's silence stretched uncomfortably long. "Donna, where is the money?" "We needed it," she finally admitted. "The house renovations, your new car, Lila's private school tuition, it all came from that account." I stared at her in disbelief. You spent my birth mother's money on your renovations? She's not your mother. Mom snapped. I raised you. I'm the one who stayed up when you were sick, who drove you to soccer practice, who helped you with homework. Because you took me away from the person who wanted to do those things herself. I shot back. She was a child, Mom said. 17 years old with no job and no family support. We saved you from a life of poverty. Did you ask her if she wanted to be saved from me? Mom's face went red. You don't understand. You were a beautiful baby, and we'd been trying to have children for years. When we saw you in the foster home, we fell in love instantly. So you decided she didn't deserve to try? She signed the papers, Mom said, but her voice was getting smaller. I picked up another document I'd found in the envelope. This is a letter she wrote to the adoption agency. She says she was coerced into signing, that she was told she could visit you and change her mind within 90 days, but nobody ever returned her calls. Dad was staring at Mom like he'd never seen her before. Donna, is that true? It was legal, she whispered. Everything we did was legal. Legal doesn't mean right, I said. That night, I called the phone number on Amy Chen's letter. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. Lila? Her voice was exactly like mine, soft with a slight rasp. Hi, I managed. I think you might be my mother. She started crying immediately. Oh, honey, I've been waiting for this call for 18 years. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about how she'd gotten pregnant at 16, how her parents had kicked her out, how she'd lived in a shelter for most of her pregnancy. She'd planned to keep me, had already picked out names and bought clothes with money from her part-time job at a laundromat. But then, you were premature, she explained, born at 34 weeks. I was so young and scared, and the social workers kept telling me I wasn't capable of caring for a sick baby. They said you needed medical care I couldn't provide. She'd signed the temporary custody papers, thinking it would just be until I was healthy enough to come home. But every time I called to check on you, they gave me the runaround. Then one day they told me you'd been placed with a family who could give you everything I couldn't. Did they tell you the family's name? No. The adoption was supposed to be closed. But 6 years ago, a woman contacted me. She said she was your adoptive mother, and that you were doing well, but that you could use extra financial support. She said if I could contribute monthly, she'd send me updates and photos. My heart sank. And you believed her? I was desperate, Amy said. I'd been searching for you for years with no luck. When she offered me a way to be part of your life, even from a distance, I would have done anything. How much money have you sent? $200 a month for 6 years. That's $14,400. I did the math. At my part-time grocery store job, making minimum wage, that was more than 8 months of work. Amy, I said, and her breath caught when I used her name. I never received any of that money, and this is the first time I've ever heard your name. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. She kept it all, Amy finally whispered. She kept my money and she kept my daughter. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, sweetheart. This isn't your fault. Can I see you? I looked toward my parents' bedroom, where I could hear them arguing in hushed voices. Yes, I said. I think I'd like that very much. We made plans to meet the next weekend. Amy lived about 4 hours away in a small town I'd never heard of. She worked at a veterinary clinic during the day and cleaned office buildings at night to make ends meet. The money she'd been sending me represented almost a quarter of her monthly income. When I told Dad about my conversation with Amy, he sat down heavily in his recliner. I had no idea, he said. Your mom told me the birth mother was a drug addict who'd abandoned you. She said you were better off never knowing about her. Do you believe her now? He shook his head slowly. I don't know what to believe anymore. The next few days were tense. Mom barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was to remind me how ungrateful I was being. She'd taken time off work to be a full-time mother when I was little. She'd driven me to dance lessons and orthodontist appointments. She'd helped me with college applications. All of that still matters, I told her, but it doesn't excuse what you did to Amy. Her name is not Amy, Mom snapped. She's a stranger who contributed genetic material. I'm your mother. You're both my mothers, I said, but only one of you has been honest with me. That Friday, I borrowed Dad's car and drove to meet Amy. I'd seen photos of her in the envelope, but seeing her in person was surreal. We had the same dark eyes, the same small hands, the same way of tucking our hair behind our ears when we were nervous. She was waiting in a coffee shop, clutching her purse like a lifeline. When she saw me, she started crying again. You're so beautiful, she said. You look just like your grandmother did at your age. We spent 6 hours together. She showed me photos of her family, my biological grandparents who had died in a car accident when I was 5, my uncle Trevor, who lived in Seattle and worked as a chef, my 2 cousins I'd never met. They all wanted to meet you, Amy said. But Donna said it would be too confusing for you to have too many family members. Donna's been in contact with all of them? Amy nodded. She said you knew about us but weren't ready for a relationship yet. She said you were focusing on school and didn't want distractions. The lies just kept piling up. Mom had been playing puppet master with my entire extended family, controlling who I could know and love. Amy, I said, I want to meet all of them. Her face lit up. Really? Really? And I want you to stop sending money to that account. I already did, she said. The day you called, I closed it. I also filed a fraud report with my bank. When I got home Sunday night, Mom was waiting in the living room. How was your visit with the stranger? She asked coldly. Her name is Amy, and she's wonderful. Mom's face twisted. Wonderful? Do you know she was arrested for shoplifting when she was 19? I stared at her. How do you know that? I've been keeping tabs on her for years. I needed to make sure she wasn't a danger to you. She shoplifted food, I said, because she was homeless and hungry, because her parents kicked her out for getting pregnant with me. She should have made better choices. She was 17 and alone. What better choices could she have made? Mom stood up, her hands clenched into fists. She could have kept her legs closed. The words hung in the air like poison. Dad, who'd been listening from the kitchen, appeared in the doorway. Donna, that's enough. No, Richard. It's not enough. I have sacrificed everything for this family. I gave up my career to raise her daughter, and now she's throwing it all away for some woman who couldn't even take care of herself, let alone a baby. Her daughter? Dad's voice was dangerous. Lila is our daughter. Not anymore, apparently. She's made her choice. I looked at the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped me through my first heartbreak, and I barely recognized her. I haven't made any choice except to learn the truth, I said. But if you keep making me choose between you and Amy, you're not going to like the answer. Mom's face went white. You'd choose a stranger over the woman who raised you? I'd choose honesty over lies. I'd choose someone who sacrificed her grocery money to support me over someone who spent it on house renovations. I'd choose someone who's been working 2 jobs for 6 years just to feel connected to me over someone who used me as a weapon to hurt her. Mom sank onto the couch. For the first time since this all started, she looked genuinely defeated. I was scared, she whispered. We tried to have children for 8 years. 8 years of fertility treatments and miscarriages and failed adoptions. When we finally got you, I was terrified someone would take you away. So you made sure they couldn't, she nodded, tears streaming down her face. I thought if I controlled the situation, if I made sure she knew you were okay but couldn't interfere, everyone would be happy. Except no one was happy, I pointed out. Amy spent 18 years wondering if she'd made the right choice, sending money she couldn't afford to a child she wasn't allowed to know. I spent 18 years feeling like something was missing, not understanding why I felt different from other kids. And you spent 18 years living with the guilt of what you'd done. I don't feel guilty, Mom said, but her voice was hollow. Yes, you do. That's why you kept the letters and the photos. That's why you created the fake account instead of just telling Amy to go away. Part of you knew what you were doing was wrong. Over the next few weeks, the truth continued to unravel. Amy had been sending not just money, but letters too. Mom had a whole box of them hidden in the attic. 18 years worth of birthday cards, Christmas gifts, school photos Amy had requested but never received. Amy had remarried when I was 8. Her husband David knew about me and had been begging her for years to hire a private investigator to find me. She'd refused, believing Mom's story that I knew about them and would reach out when I was ready. She showed me pictures. Amy told me during one of our weekly phone calls, pictures of you at dance recitals, at graduation, at your job at the grocery store. I felt like I was watching you grow up from the outside of your life. She was taking pictures of me without telling me. She said you were shy about the camera, but that you didn't mind her sharing them with me. Another lie. I'd always been happy to pose for photos. Mom had been creating an entire fictional narrative about my personality and preferences to manipulate Amy. The breaking point came when I found out about the college fund. Amy had been under the impression that her monthly contributions were going toward my education. In reality, Mom and Dad had been using the money for household expenses, while my actual college fund sat untouched, earning interest. We were going to tell you about the real college fund when you graduated, Dad explained when I confronted him. You were going to let Amy think she'd paid for my education while keeping the money she contributed? We thought, he trailed off, realizing how it sounded. You thought what? We thought she'd feel good about helping, and you'd benefit from both sources of funding. That's not helping, Dad. That's fraud. That weekend, I drove to Amy's house again. This time I brought the real bank statements. The ones showing my actual college fund, untouched by Amy's contributions. You have enough money for 4 years of state school, Amy said, staring at the numbers. You don't need my help at all. I don't need your money, I corrected. But I needed you. She looked up at me with those familiar dark eyes. Do you really mean that? I mean it. I've been missing something my whole life, and I think it was you. Amy started crying again. I've missed you every single day for 18 years. Then let's not miss any more. That summer, I moved in with Amy while I figured out my college plans. Living with her was like discovering a missing piece of myself I hadn't known was lost. We had the same sleep schedule, the same taste in music, the same way of organizing our thoughts out loud. She taught me to cook her grandmother's recipes, my great-grandmother's recipes. She showed me photo albums full of relatives who shared my features and mannerisms. For the first time in my life, I understood where I came from. Mom called constantly at first, begging me to come home. She promised to pay back every penny of Amy's money. She offered to arrange family dinners where everyone could get to know each other. It's too late for that, I told her. Please, she begged. You're my daughter. I love you. I know you love me, I said. But you love the idea of me that you created more than you love the real me. The real me comes with a biological family and a history that doesn't start with you. Dad was more understanding. He came to visit several times, and while things were awkward at first, he made an effort to get to know Amy as a person rather than a threat. I owe you an apology, he told her during one visit. I should have questioned what Donna was telling me about you. You believed your wife, Amy replied. That's what husbands are supposed to do, not when it hurts innocent people. I watched them talk, these two people who loved me in different ways and felt something I'd never experienced before, completeness. The legal fallout took months to resolve. Amy's bank ruled in her favor and recovered most of the money Mom had diverted. Mom was required to pay restitution and attend counseling. Dad filed for divorce 6 months later. I can't trust her anymore, he explained when I asked why. If she could lie to me about this for 6 years, what else has she lied about? Amy never asked me to cut contact with Mom completely. even though she would have had every right to. She raised you, Amy told me. Whatever her motivations were, she was there for you when I couldn't be. That has to count for something. So I maintained a relationship with Mom, though it was strained and limited. She'd lost the right to be my primary parent, but she was still part of my story. Amy and I spent my senior year planning for my future. I decided to attend a state school near her town, majoring in social work with a focus on family services. I want to help other families avoid what we went through, I explained. Amy smiled. That sounds perfect. At my high school graduation, both sets of parents were there. Mom and Dad sat on one side of the auditorium, Amy and David on the other. It was awkward, but it felt right. After the ceremony, Amy approached Mom in the parking lot. Thank you, she said quietly. Mom looked surprised. For what? For taking care of her when I couldn't. For making sure she grew up safe and loved. I don't agree with your methods, but I can't argue with the results. She's an amazing young woman. Mom's eyes filled with tears. She is amazing, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for keeping her from you. I'm sorry too, Amy replied. Sorry that we couldn't find a way to do this together from the beginning. They didn't hug or become best friends, but they found a way to coexist in my life. Now, 2 years later, I'm halfway through college. Amy and I talk every day, and she comes to my school events. David has become like a stepfather to me, gentle and supportive. I've met my uncle and cousins, and I spend holidays with them. Mom and I have rebuilt our relationship slowly. She's in therapy and has learned to respect the boundaries I've set. She can't make decisions about my life without consulting me, and she can't interfere with my relationship with Amy. Dad has started dating someone new, a kind woman who knew about my complicated family situation from the beginning and accepted it without judgment. The money Amy sent over the years ended up funding a scholarship at my high school for students from single-parent homes. Mom insisted on it as part of her restitution. Maybe some good can come from all the bad, she said when she wrote the check. Looking back, I realized that dinner conversation about the allowance was the moment my real life began. Everything before that was built on lies, no matter how well-intentioned. Amy likes to joke that she was paying my allowance all along. I just never got to spend it. But you're spending it now, she says, watching me work toward my degree. You're spending it on becoming exactly who you're meant to be. The hardest part was forgiving everyone involved, including myself for not questioning things sooner. There were signs. I'd always felt different, always wondered about my medical history, always felt like I was missing some crucial part of myself. But I was 18 when I learned the truth, and 18 when I had to decide what to do with it. Some days I think about how different things might have been if Mom had been honest from the beginning. Other days I'm grateful for the circuitous path that led me to where I am. Amy and I are planning a trip to visit my biological grandparents' graves next month. She's been wanting to take me there for years to tell them about the granddaughter they never got to meet. They would have loved you so much, she tells me. They never stopped asking about you. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that dinner conversation had never occurred. If Dad hadn't mentioned the allowance, if I hadn't questioned it, if we hadn't discovered the truth about the bank account. Would Mom have eventually told me on her own? Would Amy have kept sending money forever, believing she was contributing to a daughter who didn't even know she existed? Would I have gone my whole life feeling like something was missing, never knowing what it was? I'm grateful it happened the way it did, even though it was painful. Truth has a way of surfacing eventually, and the longer lies are buried, the more damage they cause when they finally explode. Now, when people ask me about my family, I don't hesitate. I have 2 mothers, I say. One who raised me and one who gave birth to me. I'm lucky to have both of them in my life, because that's the truth. Not the complicated, messy truth about deception and fraud and broken hearts. The simple truth that love doesn't have to be exclusive, families don't have to be traditional, and sometimes the most painful discoveries lead to the most beautiful endings. Amy kept every birthday card she never got to send, every Christmas gift she never got to give. She has them in a box in her closet, waiting for the right moment to share them with me. We'll open them together, she says. All 18 years at once. It'll be like the world's most emotional Christmas morning. I think about that box sometimes, full of love that was never delivered. It reminds me that there's always more love available than we realize, more family than we know about, more chances for connection than we think possible. All it takes is the courage to ask the right questions. Starting with, what allowance?